On grid tonight, Alex Palou was fastest on Wednesday. Shocker, right? Can anyone slow down the gold standard of the NTT IndyCar Series? IndyCar Gateway is moving to prime time on Sunday night, Father's Day weekend. How will this change benefit the series? Kyle Busch sounded off on his two failed attempts to put together a program for the Indy 500. How did Busch's deals fall apart? Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert, and with me are Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index. We encourage everyone to interact with us in the chat. Support us through Super Chat and visit gridnetworktv.com for our latest content. Now here's Josh with a recap of Wednesday's practice session for the 109th run of the Indianapolis 500 on a busy night with a lot of IndyCar news.
Oh, it's non-stop, isn't it? Good evening, Kobe, once more this week. And hello, Matt. Nice to see you again. Interesting show tonight. So, the start of the Wednesday practice session was delayed once again by rain and ended with the most dominant driver of the NTT IndyCar Series on top. Alex Palou was fastest at 227.546 miles per hour, and he was ahead of second place by quite a bit. Will Power, he was second fastest at 225.584 miles per hour. Joseph Newgarden, Scott Dixon, and Connor Daly, I nearly said Connor Daly as well. Connor Daly rounded out the top five. David Malukas, Marcus Armstrong, Helio Castroneves, Jack Harvey, and Christian Rasmussen completed the top 10. The photo here taken by Joe Sapinski from Penske Entertainment. Kobe, starting with you on this one. Does it feel like Alex Palou could be on the verge of winning his first oval race in the biggest race in the world?
Yeah, Josh, it really seems like that Alex Palou, when you look at him, there's nothing on this planet that can slow him down. And you think if he has one weak spot out there, it's got to be the oval tracks because he hasn't won one. And I'm sure he's getting sick. He's going to start getting sick of people talking about him not winning on an oval. And I have a feeling by the end of this season, at some point, that he is going to win on an oval. And then he'll basically, outside of winning the Indianapolis 500, which could happen, on Memorial Day weekend, that would probably be the only thing that he hasn't done yet in IndyCar. So I'm sure that first oval win is coming. And given the speed that he's shown to start off this month of May, it very well could be, not this Sunday, but the following Sunday when he's going to have his face on the Borg Warner Trophy, trying to talk a little too fast, and also sipping the delicious milk in Victory Lane. And looking at the timing charts today, it was crazy to see how much faster he was than the competition. 227.546 miles per hour. That is insanely fast compared to Power, who is in a 225 miles per hour range. I don't know what the number 10 team is doing differently this year, but they are on a completely different planet compared to the rest of the field. And this is really mind blowing to see how much quicker Palou was than yesterday's fastest driver, Will Power.
Evening, guys. Hello, everyone. It's Palou's season, isn't it, at the moment in IndyCar, and not just on the road and street courses. He's now transferred that speed to the ovals as well, but he's had decent runs here in the past. Remember last year he was up front early before he had the speeding or the pit lane incident early in the race. Of course, he was second to Helio Castroneves, let's not forget, a couple of years ago. So he's had some close calls here and at some other places as well to get his first oval win. I mean, if he can do it next Sunday, and CGR clearly, as we expect, it's Ganassi and Penske at the top end of the timing charts here through the first 2 days of running. But if he can do it on Sunday, give him all of the trophies and all of the race medals and all of the flowers and everything now, because no one else has been able to hold a candle to him, relatively speaking, throughout the first portion of the season on the road and street courses. And if we're going to turn up at the biggest, baddest oval of them all and he's beating them, then quite honestly, what's the point?
I mean, looking at him in practice today, it was astonishing about how close he was running with everybody else and doing the slipstream runs. He does look like he's completely on top of it as well. So I've got a good feeling about it, but I'm still saying don't ride out Joseph Newgarden just yet. If anything, I think Scotty Mack looks the worst out there of the top drivers at the moment. He was jumping around, nearly put it into the barrier at one point as well. But outside of the drivers we've talked about, Matt, back to you on this one. Who are the others that you're sort of standing out inside the top 10 that you've spotted?
Hello to Phil. He's present and correct. Thank you for tuning in. Who else looks good? Impressed by Connor Daly today, top 5. That's really good from him. We know how good he can go and has done in the past at the Oval. Penske, as I mentioned, Power, of course, he's in contract time, and we know what winning this race did for him the first time around. He was on the edge of perhaps being moved along by Roger, and the 500 win kind of saved him at that point, and he's gone on to do some great things from there since. It's just the normal pack we expect. I think it's going to be. There's a couple of people that perhaps aren't showing their hand. Helio ran a heck of a lot of laps today and was fast yesterday, so he's kind of in play, as again he always is. And if weather plays a factor, which we expect it might do even more so tomorrow and Friday, Saturday qualifying is going to be blockbuster TV, I should feel like, because there's going to be a lot of people all over the place in terms of what they've managed to get in terms of running time and successful and happy running time. Like Joseph Newgarden packed up pretty much very, very early today with his run, so they're pretty confident in the two camp. But yeah, it's going to be the normal cast of characters at this stage, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just gonna start off towards the top of the list. Not obviously not surprised by Palou, Power, Newgarden, Dixon been up there. Connor Daly, he regardless of what type of car he's in, usually runs pretty well here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'm sure Junko Salinger Racing really happy with how today went. But for his teammate Stingray Robb, on the other hand, not really a good day for him. 32nd fastest, and I think overnight maybe Stingray's team will look and see what Connor had with his setup and like what he was feeling with the car to see if they can apply that to his car tomorrow to try to get Stingray a little bit up the timing charts there. David Malukas, continuing to look good in the AJ Foyt racing car, while his teammate, kind of similar story with Daly and Stingray Robb, and then Malukas and Santino Ferrucci towards the bottom of the timing charts there. Marcus Armstrong, really good run. I think the Ganassi Alliance is really paying off with Meyer Shank Racing and Elio as well. And then Jack Harvey, good to see him back at the Speedway as well. Since he's been with Fox Sports, on pit road all year and now getting back in the driver's seat. And Driving Rumble, they always show up well. Ryan Hunter-Reay's also shown some good speed. Yeah, so I think Driving Rumble looks like they're in a good place. And Christian Rasmussen, remember last year all of those awesome moves that he was making that we didn't think that was going to pan out and ended up been the highest finishing rookie, I believe, and had a really solid month of May. Thought he was going to crash multiple times, but just didn't crash, to his credit. And Ed Carpenter Racing, whenever they come to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, you always want to watch them on qualifying day. And when it comes to the race, who knows how Ed Carpenter Racing will do, but definitely on qualifying day, if you're making bets on who's going to be in the pole shootout, definitely pick one of their cars. And it would not surprise me to see Christian Rasmussen be one of those drivers in the pole shootout. And there's a question from Adam saying, what's your take on the Jacob Abel and Stingray Robb paint schemes for the Indy 500? Obviously, starting with Jacob Abel, really nice to see the Danny Sullivan spin and win livery on that car. I think it looks really nice. All picture of Del Corn looking at it. Obviously he loves it as well. And then Stingray Robb, an ode to the U.S. Constitution with the American theme livery, looks really nice as well on track. That's some really good liveries for this year's Indy 500.
40 years ago. Wow.
Both really good. You mentioned ECR, Kobe. Alex Rossi looks like he's just holding a little bit back, doesn't he, from what we've seen? So he could be a big part of the qualifying stuff at the weekend.
Yeah, 40 years ago on the 26th of May, and quite coincidentally on Sunday, which is qualifying day, it's my mum and dad's 40th wedding anniversary as well. So it's scary, isn't it? They were saying earlier on how time flies. It really, really does. Talking of flying, Team Penske continue to look strong with yesterday's fastest driver, Will Power, in second, Joseph Newgarden in third, and Scott McLaughlin down in 16th position. As I said earlier on, still darting around and looking like he could crash at one point as well as they're trying new aero winglets on the front of his Penske. Newgarden's number 2 team decided as well to call it a day with just over 45 minutes remaining in practice after the second rain delay. So, Kobe, coming back to you, should the competition be worried that Newgarden ended practice so early, signaling that Team Penske is pretty much super confident in that number 2 Chevrolet?
Yeah, Josh, like I said yesterday, it would not surprise me if Joseph Newgarden becomes the first driver in the history of the Indianapolis 500 to win this race. Not one, not two, but 3 consecutive years in a row. And to me, for them to call it a day early, it really signaled a lot of confidence in what they have, that they were able to check all the boxes from today and just simply move on move on to tomorrow. And it seemed like every time Joseph Newgarden and Team Penske come to this track, they're always in the mix. And right now, it seems like that the two drivers who are really standing out have got to be obviously Alex Palou and Joseph Newgarden. And it would not surprise me if we're coming down to the final laps for this year's Indy 500, and it's a battle between Newgarden and Palou, the two in the 10 teams, because these two, are some of the best out there. And I think it would be really, really awesome to see these two drivers, Newgarden and Palou, duking it out in the final laps of this year's Indy 500. But yeah, real interesting to see they decide to call practice early, but it just shows how confident they are in their speed and their overall program at the Speedway.
Yeah, they obviously thought they couldn't or didn't want to, or felt that they could not learn anything more by going out on that after the green flag had flown with 40 odd minutes to go, and save themselves one of those. We know we've got a fast car. Let's not do anything silly, crash it, or have an engine issue or something that's going to just set us back over the rest of the week. Different next Friday, I suppose, when it's you really getting ready for race time. But while they know they've got a fast car, do not do anything to jeopardize it going into the qualifying runs at the weekend.
Let's check back in on Prema then as well, and I'm surprised Larson hasn't been faster. He's building it up. He was doing a lot of runs early on with the McLarens going 4 wide, doing some race simulation, what is, we're suspecting, close enough to race temperature out there as well with overcast conditions. But checking in on Prema, who had an awful first day of on-track action as well. They didn't even have the car ready to go, and he ran a handful of laps after missing valuable track time, and both cars were at the bottom of the speed charts. But today was a significant improvement with Warren Schwartzman and Callum Ilott 29th and 31st fastest respectively. So Matt, does it seem like things appear to finally be treading in the right direction for Prema?
Yeah, you guys talked about it yesterday, and me and Kobe were chatting before we went on the air. What a situation for one of the standout European single-seated teams. We talked about it when this was announced, and when the drivers got announced, how good we thought Prema, coming in, they're going to be a great addition to the series. But to miss pretty much half a day with one car and 3/4 of a day with the other car yesterday is mind-boggling, really. And then again, not particularly quick today. I feel like we're going to see one, maybe both of them in that sort of last row shootout at the weekend. It's a shame for Callum Ilott. We know how good he is at this place. He just doesn't seem to have any luck. All that trouble with Junkos a couple of years ago, finds himself he went away, now he's come back again, finds himself in a new setup, but it looks like perhaps finding himself in a sort of a predicament that he's had previous in. Let's hope for Callum's sake that that's not the case, and they can turn it around. If we can avoid the weather tomorrow, which it sounds like is coming, then they can get a good full day's running in, get themselves back up to speed with everybody else. That's what Prema will be hoping for.
Yeah, and I wouldn't exactly say that 29th to 31st, Josh. I wouldn't really say that's a significant improvement. I let you think there's maybe a minor improvement. It shows that they're building, and at least they're not at the very bottom of the speed chart. So I guess that's something they can hang their hats on. But yeah, it's definitely been a difficult start. Not just to their very first Indianapolis 500, but really their first season in IndyCar. Prema's been undergoing a lot of growing pains and struggles as they come up to speed. Callum Ilott, Robert Schwartzman had a lot of issues in practice throughout the year. They've been missing a lot of practice time, so that's not really good within itself. But then again, like I said yesterday, the NTT IndyCar Series is a very difficult series to compete in, especially if you've never done it before. It doesn't matter what your resume is coming in. Like Matt said, one of the premier teams in Europe when it comes to this, when it comes to driver development and in the single seaters, they're the gold standard in Europe when it comes to, let's say, Formula 2, Formula 3, and some of the other series they race over there. But coming to IndyCar, completely different animal, and I think this is basically baptism by fire, what they're going through right now, seeing how difficult that it is. But it's still very early in the season, so I think Prema will continue to get better over time. But but right now we're focusing only on the Indianapolis 500, and the thing that they don't have right now is time, because you need to figure it out now. You need to figure it out quick, or otherwise you're going to get swallowed up when you're in that last row shootout on Sunday, and that's a place that no new team wants to be, because if you're in the last row shootout, anything can and will happen. And Robert Schwartzman, Callum Ilott, might be a real uphill battle for them if they're in that last row shootout. But I guess 29th, 31st, maybe they hit on something overnight. Given they were able to collect a lot more data today, and show up tomorrow, maybe they'll move further up the speed charts, then they can continue to build, get more comfortable in the car, and everything will be going perfectly fine from there. And Matt, you mentioned all the struggles Callum Ilott had. In the past, I remember the one year he was like really slow, and then he was like fussing with the team. He said it's the car, and the team said no, it's not. And then very late they decided to swap to the backup car, and then all of a sudden the backup car was a lot better than the primary. And then Callum was like, I tried to tell you, it was the car. And then last year, I know we talked about it before we went on the air, when Ilott didn't even get to take the start of last year's Indy 500. He was on pit lane with issues. And then, they had the first lap crash with Tom Blomqvist, and then that really saved him from really going a lap down. And then Ilott drove all the way from the rear of the field, 32nd, all the way to nearly in the top 10. So he knows how to get around this track, but it's been a real difficult situation for him this year, given that Prema is a new team to the series.
Yeah, finished 12th as well on that board, as I've just looked at on my notes I've got below me in the commentary box. They printed them out ready for today. So all set, ready, and I've been making notes throughout the days as well on yesterday's timesheets. It's all go for our coverage here of the 500. Now, as we've been saying in the last few days on the wrap-up show and yesterday's special edition of The Grid Tonight, we've talked about how AJ Foyt Racing has been sort of taking a step back this year after a breakout performance in 2024, mainly with Santino Ferrucci. Now, yesterday, David Malukas was quick, but Ferrucci was down on the speed charts. Today, Malukas was inside the top 10, and Ferrucci 33rd out of 34 cars. And remember, Ferrucci has a streak on the line. He's looking for his 7th top 10 finish in the Indy 500 in 7 starts. And Kirby, after another disappointing day for the number 14 team, are you concerned that AJ Foyt Racing might not have the speed in that car, and that could put Ferrucci's top 10 streak in jeopardy?
Yeah, if you guys were watching the Fox broadcast today, you saw a very frustrated Santino Ferrucci, which is really rare to see, because this guy is usually in a really good mood in the way things are going. But to see him, that upset, it just shows you, that this team is not exactly where they need to be at this point. But David Malukas, you mentioned, top 10 today in practice. I believe he was 6th fastest at 224.618 miles per hour. So that number 4 team is, looking really good. They were also quick yesterday. I believe they were in the top 15 on Tuesday. And then Santino Ferrucci, it's just been a struggle trying to find that speed, unlock the pace that they had last year. Ferrucci was, last year in that number 14 car, he was really flying. He was so quick. Now, a lot of people, were thinking about picking him for pick a winner, that he could potentially win this race. And this year it seems like that he is really nowhere to be seen. And especially when you're driving the number 14 and AJ Foyt is on site at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, when you have AJ there watching you, there's a lot of pressure. And especially, with the sponsors that they have at Foyt, you really want to perform well at the Indianapolis 500. And for Ferrucci, that 14 team, to be towards the very bottom of the speed chart, to be second to last, that definitely has to be an extremely disappointing Wednesday for him. So I'm sure they're going to go to the drawing board overnight, look at what David Malukas in the 14 was doing, or try to apply it to the 14 and see what they can do moving forward. Because if tomorrow comes around, they're still not fast, and Fast Friday comes around and they're still not quick, then we could really see some problems going on with this team, and maybe that top 10 streak will finally come to an end.
Yeah, Ferrucci's a Sunday man, though, isn't he? He'll find a way next week. If they can get the car better, then great. But even so, with a slightly off set-up car, you can bet your bottom dollar that Santino will find a way towards the front when it's go time. I will just remind everybody that probably saw my post at the beginning of the season, and I've said this a couple of times on social media. David Malukas was my preseason pick to win this race, so I'm quite pleased to see him up there in the top end of town today on times, because I think that's my outside smoky for the win next week. So that's good news. But yeah, I think Santino will. There's still plenty of time. Still got all of tomorrow and Friday, depending on the weather, and of course the 2 days of running post qualifying next week to get that car where he wants it to be.
Now, the no-toe speeds have just been announced, and I've just put it into the group here. Santini Ferrucci's 33rd in the no-toe speed runs. No speed whatsoever today are done on that, so it's really bad. Does every team have a backup car just in case people like Larson lose it? Every team has a backup car. It's called their road course car. So
And that's not good.
Yeah.
We talked about it yesterday, Josh. Yeah. The last thing you want to do is to bring your road course car out because that car is not going to be as quick. But in the past, we've seen drivers crash their primary, and then they come to the road course car, and somehow they were able to get into the Indianapolis 500. I believe that year when Alonso got bumped, didn't Kyle Kaiser crashed that car in practice, and then he bumped Alonso out in a road course car. And then remember, Pato O'Ward had a big crash when he drove for Carlin and what was supposed to be his Indy 500 debut. And he crashed that car, almost flipped over. And then O'Ward was in the road course car for Carlin, ended up getting bumped from the show in his first attempt at this race. So the last thing you want to do is be in a road course car.
Now, Takuma Sato is just doing the press conference right now as well, and he said that his crash at the Indy 500 test was 94G and broke his seat. So,
wow.
No, that's a really hard accident as well. That's why I keep looking down at my phone because I'm getting the transcripts coming in from it. But 94G is insane. No wonder he's gone to a new chassis that's run for the first time here at the test. It's just an example of how it can go very badly wrong when you crash a car here at Indy. And it was just a low-speed shunt, not at full speed. Yeah, that's how it goes. So let's move on to some other news that was announced earlier on this morning. A pair of 7-time champions will team up for what's being called a GOAT drive. 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion Jimmy Johnson will get behind the wheel of the IndyCar 2-seater. Johnson will have 7-time Super Bowl champion Tom Brady as the passenger. After Johnson finishes up his 2-seater duties at Indianapolis, he'll go to fly to Charlotte to compete in the Coca-Cola 600. His 700th career start in the Cup Series. Now, with this being the first Indy 500 on Fox, they've really included a lot of their media personalities in this season's IndyCar festivities. At St. Petersburg, baseball legend and MLB on Fox analyst Alex Rodriguez rode in the 2-seater. Besides Brady, 2 more members from NFL and Fox will be involved in the Indy 500 with Michael Stranan will drive the pace car, and Grant will be in his natural habitat inside the snake pit for a party as well. Now, it doesn't seem like Fox Sports is serious about bringing new eyeballs to IndyCar and the Indy 500 by bringing out arguably their biggest stars.
I mean, it's what we've seen from Fox all year, isn't it? With the more promotion and such like. With NBC, you knew what you were going to get out of 500. You were going to get throughout the week the rolling rotation through the commentary box, kind of a little bit like FS1 are doing a little bit, and then you'd have Mike Tirico, Danica Patrick, Jimmy Johnson, Dale Jr. They had Jeff Burton there, didn't they, last year with Kim Kuhn, I seem to remember. All people from within their NBC Motorsport family. But what Fox has done, have gone, let's pull other people from here and there. Everyone who knows who Tom Brady is. Michael Strahan's a daytime guy. He'll bring in some eyeballs as well. And they just want more people to tune in on, pick up their TV remote on Saturday, late morning, lunchtime, and put Fox on and go, oh, what's this? Or, oh, that race is, that race thing is on Sunday. Let's watch that. So only the truth will be in the pudding, I guess, when we get the number after the weekend. But it is refreshing to see Fox using their Fox family rather than just relying on the motorsport core family like NBC did, especially through those last couple of years.
Yeah, Matt, totally agree. I don't really have much more to add there, but I do think it's a good idea to try to send, some of their biggest stars out there to try to promote IndyCar, because I'm sure there's some people in the world, obviously right now, have no idea what IndyCar is, have no idea what the Indianapolis 500 is. So that's why I think, Fox needs to be hot and heavy on their social medias, and especially for all the stars that's in there, like all the people who, let's say, follow Alex Rodriguez on Instagram, whatever, all of Michael Strahan's followers, and of course Tom Brady's followers, if they're like posting about like what they're going to be doing on race day, on their social media, some of let's say traditional baseball or football fans, maybe they'll pay attention to it and turn on Fox to see the Indianapolis 500 and be exposed to something completely different. Yeah, and Gronk in the snake pit, I'm not really surprised. Gronk's a party guy, and that's why it's put in the script that this is his natural habitat. And yeah, maybe some of the Gronk fans, will get interested in IndyCar as well. But I think that this is a good thing to try to bring more eyeballs. We don't know how many new fans it will create, but hopefully IndyCar will start to gain a much larger following. I know I've been looking at some of the television numbers this year. I know some of them have been, a little disappointing for IndyCar because it has such high expectations. But still, when you look at where things were on NBC compared to where they are now, it's nice to see that there is, somewhat of an increase in viewership of IndyCar. So that's still some positives to take away from it.
I've been really enjoying it, actually, because for once, Sky have taken Fox's feed, not the international. So we've been seeing what you lot have been seeing, and it's been really good, really enjoyable, bar the ad breaks every 5 minutes.
Did I see Joey Logano was in the commentary box at some point today with both the radio and the TV, wasn't he, as well? So that's another person that they've rolled in.
Yeah, and he was saying he has never driven an IndyCar. He's never even been in the simulator, but he also doesn't want to interrupt with the Indy 500 stuff or the IndyCar stuff. But I reckon he could be persuaded to probably do it with Penske. I wonder how Tom Brady will like going 200 mile per hour in Indianapolis. Well, he can certainly throw a ball just as fast, so it should be quite interesting to see how we could go. Different kind of action, really, to come through. Now, towards the end of today's broadcast on FS1, they did mention the possibility of rain on Thursday and Friday. Tomorrow will be important to get as much track time as possible. Fast Friday will be more important because they'll get the boost for qualifying as well. And if it rains, potentially impacting qualifying runs for teams before Saturday, how unpredictable, though, could this qualifying be for this season? Because, Kobe, we've been throwing away with the rain, we've been throwing away with the atmosphere, but it's just trying to get consistent lap times in, and that's nothing we've had so far this weekend.
Yeah, for one day, I would love to have a full 6 hours of running from noon to 6 p.m. Eastern time, but it seems like that just isn't in the cards for Mother Nature this year. Yesterday we missed out on running. Today we missed out from running as well, and tomorrow and Fast Friday, it seems like we may miss out again on a full day of running. So for the sake of the drivers and teams, I hope we get as much track time as we possibly can. But if we don't, let's say Fast Friday is a complete washout. Hopefully it isn't. But if it were to be a washout, I think it would make things real exciting for qualifying, as because the teams would have limited running, when they turn up the wick. And maybe we'll see some surprises in qualifying. Maybe we'll see some teams who we didn't really expect to be as quick, suddenly jump towards the top of the charts and lock themselves in the field. And some of the teams who expected to be strong, potentially be in the conversation to be in that last row shootout. So I think if anything, the rain could just make qualifying even more unpredictable. I still think at the end of the day, you'll still have the usual suspects up there starting towards the front, in the pole shootout, in contention to start on the front row, like your Ganassis, your Penske's. Maybe you'll even throw an Andretti up there, and obviously Ed Carpenter Racing is really good as well in qualifying, and some others. And then maybe your teams, let's say maybe like Santino's team, AJ Foyt Racing, the two Primas, maybe Dale Quinn Racing, or given their history of the last row shootout, maybe we'll see Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan Racing in there as well. Yeah, certainly a lot of things that could happen if Mother Nature throws another wrinkle in the team's plans. But unpredictable, I think that would be really good this year for IndyCar, especially since it's mostly been predictable with Alex Palou winning almost all of the races but one. And Denver says that Fox has been a blessing this year for the IndyCar series.
Yeah, you're right, Kobe. Not much more, again, to add to what you said. For the drivers and the teams, they want as much running time as possible so they can sharpen their pencils and make sure they're ready for the weekend. But if you want storylines and you want drama and you want things to talk about, then we want no running at all for the next 2 days, and then they roll the cars out on Saturday morning and try and qualify them. That's what I'm kind of hoping for to some degree, because then it will make the weekend really, really exciting, because as we talked about, there's a couple of teams and some drivers that are a little bit all over the place, and if they have to not go on the track again all day tomorrow and Friday, roll out at the weekend, they're still going to be all over the place, and that's the time that you need to have everything in the right place to get yourself qualified for the show.
What three guys didn't post a no-toe lap I'll get that open on my phone because I've got it here. The no-toe results. Well, I can tell you that Kirkwood was topper with it with a 2:22.760. So looking at it quickly, one of them was definitely going to be... it's the two Premers alongside Santino Ferrucci. So there you go. That's the early one that I can quickly take through. So there you go. So before we move on, finally, as well, what are your final takeaways from today's practice session, Matt?
Well, much to what I said before, Ganassi looked good. Nice to see Scott Dixon up there. Still hoping and praying that he can get another one of these things at some stage in his illustrious career. Palou, as we've talked about, is just on another level at the moment, it seems, and Newgarden as well. So interesting to see what McLaren can do. We've not really heard much, have we, from Pato? He was a little bit disappointed. They lost a lot of time yesterday with problems, and then obviously we had weather, and hasn't really shown up in terms of the top times either today. So interesting to see what Arrow, I was going to say call them Arrow, McLaren go and do for the next few days, especially Kyle Larson, as you can probably tell from behind me.
Yeah, definitely. One of the biggest surprises so far after 2 days is probably the fact that we haven't really had much to say about Arrow McLaren. They're not towards the top of the charts. And, like most of the cars, just slightly above mid-pack or hovering, in the middle of mid-pack. And then Christian Lundgaard, not really a good day for him down in 30th. Today fastest, and then you had Nolan Siegel in 25th. Pato O'Ward was 20th, and Kyle Larson was the top Arrow McLaren driver in 13th. So the McLarens definitely have a long ways to go. And also looking at 11th fastest, Louis Foster. I think that's really good if you're Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan, to see the rookie go out there, and go 11th fastest. Real good for him. And then also Takuma Sato, in the car that they had to go, the car had to ride off from the open test, completely build a new chassis. 15th fastest, showing that they really haven't lost any speed compared to where they were during the open test day. Good for him. Graham Rahal 17th and Devlin DeFrancesco 19th. So if you're actually Rahal, you have to be extremely happy with the way things are going. And then some of your bottoms, on here, you got Callum Ilott 31st, Steven Rock 32nd, Santino Ferrucci 33rd, and then Ed Carpenter 34th. I'm actually not too concerned about Ed Carpenter being the slowest today because, once you turn up the wick and get in the qualifying trend, I fully expect him to, safely lock in the field, guys. He's one of the best qualifiers we've seen in recent history here at the Indianapolis 500. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the week goes. And it's in the chat, John says that Tony Kanaan runs tomorrow, so you hope for no rain. And I feel bad for Tony Kanaan because he's been trying to do his refresher test for the last 2 days. It seems like each time it's time for his refresher test, it decides to rain, and then you have to postpone it. So hopefully Tony will finally get to run this tomorrow so he can go back to team principal mode instead of, thinking that what if Kyle can't, do this race and then I have to hop in at any moment. But yeah, it's just been real frustrating this week with the weather.
Yeah, it's really nerve-wracking for me. He's not been enjoying it at all. Just want to correct myself. It was Marcus Armstrong, Marcus Ericsson, and Santino Ferrucci who did not do any toe runs today. I've just gone back on my timing monitor to double-check as well because it hadn't fully loaded with the Premers either, but they are the three who've done it. So on to our second story of the evening after wrapping up the test, but it's still IndyCar-related because IndyCar and Fox Sports have announced changes to the start times for 5 consecutive race weekends from June the 15th throughout to July the 20th. Starting on Sunday, June 15th, the race at Gateway was originally scheduled for 3 p.m. Eastern. Now the race is moving to a prime time slot on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, making it the first ever scheduled primetime IndyCar race on a Sunday night. This will avoid a clash with the inaugural NASCAR Cup Series race in Mexico City. IndyCar President Doug Bowles called the decision to move Gateway's start time back is a tremendous display of their series' partnership with Fox Sports and the track to generate this exciting opportunity for IndyCar on Father's Day. There have been some additional changes to the start times with Road America moving from 3:30 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Mid-Ohio and Race 2 of the Iowa doubleheader both now move up an hour, while Toronto moves up 2 hours from 2 p.m. to noon Eastern. These changes will either directly avoid a clash with the Cup Series race or at least make sure IndyCar starts and ends before the end of the NASCAR race. Graphic courtesy of Penske Entertainment. Kobe, starting with you with this one. How do you feel about IndyCar changing their start time for Gateway to avoid a clash with NASCAR's race in Mexico City and the other changes?
I think that this was a great move, that this was able to happen for IndyCar, Fox Sports, and Gateway, the track to work together to make this happen. I think that this is a huge win, not just for IndyCar. I think it's a huge win for NASCAR as well, which is, this inaugural event, Mexico City. It's one of the most highly anticipated Cup Series races of the year outside, of our crown jewels, the Daytona 500, the Coca-Cola 600, which is next weekend, the Southern 500, and the Brickyard 400. Yeah, so first time that we're going to have the Cup Series race here in Mexico City. There's going to be a lot of, excitement about this. A lot of people are going to be tuning in. And if these races, had clash like they originally were going to, I have a feeling most people would be on Prime Video, getting ready for the Mexico City race, since it is a highly anticipated event. And then, IndyCar, left picking up the pieces once again in a direct clash. And I think that this is perfect. That's going to be prime time on Sunday night, because we're getting to an interesting interesting time of the year, where a lot of the sports are starting to, calm down. Obviously, there's still going to be sports on and all of that, but Sunday night, there's not really going to be a lot going on, and it's Father's Day. So by the time 8 p.m. rolls around on the night of Father's Day, if you had chances to celebrate and all of that, a lot of people are going to be done with that. So you'll be sitting down, relaxing, and if something's on, why not turn on Fox and watch IndyCar? I think that this is great that it's going to be featured in this slot. And then by the time 8 rolls around, the NASCAR races for Mexico City, will be over, and then you can just focus on IndyCar. And I know with some of the other start times you mentioned, Josh, is not. It's not going to, be like a direct clash for all of that, but like IndyCar will just be finishing up when NASCAR is coming on. And I think that's a huge win, because NASCAR and IndyCar have a lot of fans who overlap with people liking both, instead of, just being a NASCAR only fan and being just an IndyCar fan, because it's frustrating when they come on at the exact same time, because you either have to try to pick and choose what to watch, or try to watch them at the same time. And where you're trying to watch them at the same time, you usually end up missing something. So it'd be nice for everyone who like both series to be able to focus directly on one at a time.
Yeah, really positive stuff from the tracks, the series, and Fox. We've seen the clashes have not favoured IndyCar. If there is a NASCAR race on at the same time as an IndyCar race, and you watch both series, you're probably going to watch the Cup race over IndyCar so far this season, especially if Alex Palou's dominance continues. Then relatively no one would watch. And two other positives from the Gateway change is it gets it out 3 p.m. in the afternoon in St. Louis, which more than likely will be absolutely scorching hot. So bringing it into the night race will be beneficial for the teams, the drivers, and the attendees, the fans at the racetrack in Madison. Also on that day is the Montreal Canadian Grand Prix, so that gets it out of the clash for that too. So now all three of those, give or take a little bit either way, are clash free on Father's Day, which is good. The only disappointment thing from that is the week after IndyCar goes to Road America, and that's the only one of that sort of July-June window that hasn't changed, and that will clash with Pocono for the Cup Series and the Watkins Glen 6 hours. Difficult to get a IndyCar race away from a 6-hour race, but all three of those big series are going to be on at the same time on that Sunday.
Yeah, I'm not doing the IndyCar, just to let you know, because Adam's put it there London Late Night. I've just looked at the schedule for this weekend and realizing on that I'm probably not going to sleep, but I don't think my body would let me physically do and awake from 9 a.m. on the Saturday until 4 a.m. on the Monday morning. I don't think it would let me do that. So,
as well, isn't it?
yeah, it's Le Mans. So I think I'll just stay to Le Mans and Formula One, and then one of the other team. Yeah, I think Matthew's already said that he can take the IndyCar race, and somebody else can take Mexico with the race in NASCAR. So that's going to be fun. So yeah, I'm not doing it. I cannot do it. I would physically be dead at the end of it as well. Could we see IndyCar having races on Saturday afternoon instead of Sunday afternoon? We've got a couple, but I think Fox will start to look at it and sort of go back to the NBC route. That's just my take on that we might see these classes change.
Yeah, like we had last week, of course, with the Indy GP, which is always on the Saturday, although it was much later in the afternoon this year. I'd like to see that, especially with IndyCar finishing their season, relatively speaking, with give or take a week before football starts in September. And of course, college football is massive on the Saturday. It then gets it out of the Cup Series clashes. It gets it away from Formula One when it's on Kobe's side of the water there. and it gets it away from IMSA as well, which of course we know has got a huge following too, which is over on NBC. So I'd like to see more on Saturday. I think that would be a good move.
I'm
Good
with
for us
you
in
because
Europe as well. Get it on Saturday night for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there will be one other thing you have to consider. Also on network TV, if Fox were to move the IndyCar races, well, most of them to a Saturday, they would also be competing against the Xfinity Series races on the CW. So I wonder, what people would choose. Would they choose Xfinity or would they choose IndyCar? Because the CW numbers for Xfinity this year have been really, really good.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Watching it all just entertaining us all as well. I'm looking forward to seeing it. But so that's one IndyCar race I know I'm 100% not doing this year because I would probably be on the floor of this commentary box that I'm in right now. Moving on to our third story of the evening end, and I'll wait until I'm full screen to start reading it. On a most recent episode of the Dirty Mo Media's Actions Detrimental podcast with Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch finally confirmed his rumoured failed bid to enter the Indianapolis 500. Busch told Hamlin in 2017 that he had a deal all done to compete in the same crown jewel race older brother Kurt Busch ran in 2014. Now, Kyle revealed that his primary sponsor for his tenure at Joe Gibbs Racing, M&M's, was going to back his Indy 500 program. He also received approval from Toyota to drive a Chevrolet-powered IndyCar, but team owner Joe Gibbs refused to let him enter the race. After this deal fell through, Busch put together a second deal, and one of his sponsors was talking to McLaren CEO Zach Brown in an effort to get Busch a seat with Aaron McLaren. However, Brown told Busch's sponsor they needed to buy the car as well, which put a dampener on his plans. Shortly after that, Busch found out that Kyle Larson took the seat that was intended for him, signing a 2-year deal while Busch was only planning for a 1-year deal. Busch recently turned 40 years old, and there was no telling if he'll be able to make his debut in the Indy 500 anytime soon. The link to this podcast episode is in the video description below, and the photo taken by Chris Owens from Penske Entertainment. Matt, what do you think of Kyle Busch's story here about putting together 2 Indy 500 programs that never materialized, and is he actually running out of time to make it happen?
Yeah, I think he probably is. A great listen, this episode of AD, as it always is with Denny and the crew down there, and to have Kyle on was great. It was a bit of a mind recalibration to hear 2 Cup Series guys speaking for 25 minutes, half an hour about Indianapolis for the 500. That was a bit of a recalibration of the mind. But wild that this, that first one especially, it was locked in and done, loaded to go, ready to go until Joe Gibbs pulled the plug on it, which we've seen with the Gibbs organization, haven't we, over the last couple of years, where they've not liked their guys going off and doing what I would call extracurricular racing. That's kind of changed recently. We saw Christopher Bell obviously doing a lot more dirt stuff over the last couple of years, and we've seen others as well. Chase Briscoe now into that team has been doing some other stuff, and that's kind of filtered down through some of the other squads as well with Hendrick. But sticking with Gibbs, that would have been huge for Kyle in his pomp in the mid-20 teens to be going over and doing the 500 with M&M's on the car would have been a huge story. And then to have this secondary theme that he had it all lined up ready, and it was pulled from under his feet by the Kyle Larson deal. So that probably would have been his last opportunity. There was another piece of this puzzle which was never fully explained, that Denny Hamlin was going to do a 24-hour race, probably Daytona. He wouldn't elaborate on where it was or couldn't remember. But he had that lined up to go, and then that never happened either. So we saw Kyle Busch go and do that race with Lexus a few years ago. But it would have been nice to see Denny do that too. So we always dream about what would it be like, a bit like Larson going to the 500. What would it be to see driver X in Series Y? A couple of times this looked like it was going to happen with Kyle Busch, and it never did, which is a real shame.
It's getting really annoying, as Ben says, still mind-boggling that Gibbs of all people said no, considering Tony Stewart did it twice without issue. Well, I can think of several reasons why he won't let Kyle go. So,
and of course, Tony was coming the other way, wasn't he? With all of his IndyCar IRL experience coming into NASCAR, whereas the other guys were going back to the other side. So,
arguably, I'd say it's easier going from NASCAR to IndyCar than IndyCar to NASCAR, as we've seen Helio try and do at 50 years old as well, struggling, and Catherine, but that's a whole different story. So next, we're going to head over back to Matt for the latest from our Grid EPI update.
Thank you, Josh. Another hugely busy weekend in the Grid Endurance Performance Index this weekend. And let's tell you what happened and where it happened. We'll start in Germany, where it was NLS 3, the third round of the Nürburgring Landstrecke Series. There is the shot from the beginning of the 4-hour race on Saturday afternoon. And the car that's at the front of that picture, off the line, ended up winning. Another win for Porsche on the Nordschleife. But this time it was the Manthey EMA team that got the victory, not the Falcon team. Arjen Guven and Thomas Preining, the drivers of the Grello Porsche. They got the win on Saturday. Door Motorsport won in Pro-Am with brothers Ben and Phil. And in the AM category, Equipe Vitesse Motorsport got their second win of the season. Michael Heinrich, Eric Ullstrom and Arno Klassen, the winners in the AM category. At Mandalika in Indonesia, the second round of the GT World Challenge Asia Series touchdown. The first time, really, we've seen big international car racing at Mandalika. We've seen it for bikes often with World Superbike and MotoGP going there, but good to see cars there for a change. And a double win over the weekend for Origin Motorsports. They won both races, Bo Yang and Hong Yi Lee on screen there in their Porsche, winning on Saturday. And on Sunday, it was their teammates, Alessio Picariello and Wei Lu, getting the victory in the number 4 purple car. Yang and Hong Li Yi won one of the races at Sepang, so they are the championship leaders heading to the next round of GT World Challenge Asia. A bit more closer to home for certainly me and Josh, and that was at Spa on Saturday for the WEC, where Ferrari took their third win of the season, a second of the year for Alessandro Pierguidi, James Collado and Antonio Giovinazzi for Ferrari in the 51 car. So the Ferrari have won all 3 races so far this season. Le Mans, of course, is next, as we talked about a little bit earlier on. GT3 was won again by another Ferrari. This was the Vista AF Corsa car of Alessio Rivera, Francois Heriot and Simon Mann, getting the victory in GT. And we've saved the most important one really till last this week, which was at Laguna Seca for IMSA on Sunday night, where they got back into action after a bit of a break. Porsche winning, and it was a Porsche 1-2, but this time it was the other way around for the first time this season, with the 6 car getting the win, Matt Jaminet and Mathieu Jaminet and Matt Campbell, getting my Matts the wrong way around, getting the win in GTP ahead of their teammates Felipe Nasr and Nick Tandy. Lauren Heinrich and Klaus Bachler got the win in the Pro class for GTD for AO Racing, and in GTD, Winwood Racing were the winners with Russell Ward and Phil Ellis for Mercedes. Let's have a look at the points then. Now 42 races down of 157 on week 7 of the Grid Endurance Performance Index Championship for 2025. Nasr and Tandy continue to lead. Their points have been chopped by coming second, can you believe, because they've had such a great year, and they've fallen slightly back from where they were. New entry at 3, Antonio Giovinazzi with his 2 wins as part of that Ferrari trio in the WEC. He slides in there into third place, and Arjen Guven pops up into the top 10 with his win at the Nürburgring on Saturday too. And Jaminet there, one of the IMSA winners, slides in to 10th position as Kobe flicks the page to give you the top 50. There it is. Pick out some of your favourite drivers if they're on the page. I can tell you what's coming up this weekend. We've only got 4 races, which is quite nice because it's going to get busy, really busy after this. GT World Challenge USA is at Sebring over the weekend, and GT World Challenge Europe is at Zandvoort. All sprint races across the weekend for both of those championships. We'll give you the winners from those races on the show next week and an updated point score. But Nasr and Tandy will still be top for, that's now 5 weeks. So it'll be 6 weeks out of the 7 that they'll be top for next week. That is guaranteed. Back to Kobe now. More of the headlines from another busy week of motorsports news.
Thanks, Matt. Time for some more motorsports news from around the world. Once again, Pato O'Ward will get to drive a McLaren Formula One car during FP1 at the Mexico City Grand Prix later this year. O'Ward also got to do FP1 in Mexico City last year for the team after he completed his season in the N2T IndyCar Series. As he gets seat time in the 2025 McLaren F1 car, his FP1 session will allow him to give feedback to help with the car setup, which could be beneficial for Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. O'Ward said he's excited to be back in FP1 for his home Grand Prix in Mexico City, and it felt great for him to help the team check all the boxes of things they wanted to accomplish in his previous outing. Photo courtesy of Formula One. In order to celebrate 40 years of racing at Le Mans, Toyota Gazoo Racing will run a throwback livery for next month's 24 Hours of Le Mans. The number 7 Toyota, shared by Mike Conway, Kamui Kobayashi, and Nick DeFries, they're going to throw it back to the Toyota TS020, aka the GT1, which participated at Le Mans in 1998 and 1999. Back in the day, the GT1 captured the attention spans of sports car fans with its aerodynamic curves and introduced new fans to Le Mans through an appearance in the first ever Gran Turismo video game, graphic courtesy of Toyota Gazoo Racing. NASCAR Xfinity Series regular Harrison Burton will compete in the All-Star race on Sunday night at North Wilkesboro Speedway. Burton will drive the number 51 Ford for Rick Ware Racing with sponsorship from Morton Buildings. He earned his spot in this year's All-Star race for winning last year's Daytona Summer Race with Wood Brothers Racing. Burton said it's really special to have a spot on the grid because the All-Star race is one of those events he grew up dreaming about. And with Burton in the 51, Cody Ware will swap over to the number 15 Ford for the All-Star Open and return to his regular ride the following week at Charlotte. Photo taken by James Gilbert from Getty Images. 4-time NASCAR Euro Series champion Alain Day will compete in 3 ARCA Menard Series road course races with Venturini Motorsports. Day will drive the number 25 JSSI Toyota and ARCA National races at Lime Rock and Watkins Glen, including an ARCA West race at Sonoma. And 71 Euro Series starts. Day has 24 wins and 34 podiums. Team owner Billy Venturini said Day is an accomplished driver on the world stage, and he's excited to add a top-notch road course ringer to his driver lineup. Photo courtesy of Venturini Motorsports. And in order to get more seat time, Christopher Bell will enter the NASCAR Xfinity Series race in Mexico City on Saturday, June 14th. So 1 month from today, Bell will drive the number 24 Toyota for Sam Hunt Racing with sponsorship from Mobil One, with the Cup Series racing at Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez for the first time. Running the Xfinity Series race will help Bell prepare for the Cup race on Sunday, June 15th. Team owner Sam Hunt said this is an exciting opportunity for his organization to have Bell in the car. Mentioned that Bell seems to be the first Cup driver to reach out whenever they have a good result on Saturdays. Photo courtesy of Sam Hunt Racing. And last weekend in Tasmania, it was announced that Brad Jones Racing will become the second Toyota team beginning in the 2026 Repco Supercars Championship season. Toyota signed a multi-year deal with BJR, who will fill 4 GR supercars, making it 6 total full-time entries when you count both Walkinshaw and Andretti United cars. The team currently fills 4 Chevrolet Camaros for Andre Heimgartner, Jackson Evans, Bryce Fullwood, and Macaulay Jones. Team owner Brad Jones said the decision to switch from Chevrolet to Toyota was not taken lightly, but he's been reassured time and time again that it was the right decision. Jones added he's been impressed with Toyota's approach to supercars and believes next year will be a pinch me moment. Photo courtesy of Toyota. Justin Allgaier will serve as the reserve driver for Hendrick Motorsports' number 5 team for the next 2 weeks at the All-Star race in Coca-Cola 600, while Kyle Larson is at Indianapolis focused on qualifying in his number 17 Arrow McLaren Chevrolet. Allgaier will practice and qualify Larson's number 5 Chevrolet at North Wilkesboro Speedway, but Larson is expected to make it to North Wilkesboro for the All-Star race in time on Sunday night. Then, just like he did last year, Allgaier will also be on standby for the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway next weekend. Crew chief Cliff Daniels said they're fortunate to have Allgaier stepping in to help again and believes his feedback will be helpful as they dial in the car for Sunday night. Photo taken by Jarrett C. Tilton from Getty Images. And the FIA have made changes to the rulebook regarding how swearing will be officiated moving forward. Let me bring this up on full screen so I can actually see it. Not gonna go word for word here, but some of the changes that they're gonna be making, they're gonna reduce the amount you would be fined if you're caught violating the rules. They're gonna reduce it by 50%, and then the stewards will have the option to fully suspend, that fine, especially if it's the first offense by a driver and team. It's similar to what we were talking about with the World Rally Championship in the recent weeks and the last couple of months. They're going to look at the controlled environments versus the uncontrolled environments about whether or not they will decide to penalize you. As a given example, controlled environments are going to include settings like press conferences, and like official meetings with the media where you're not going to be allowed to swear. Where you're not allowed to swear. While uncontrolled environments, as I mentioned, spontaneous comments made by drivers of teams, whether you're on track talking to the team on the radio or during a rally stage, when they're in the heat of the moment, that they're not going to penalize you for swearing and all of that. And if you continue to look down the list, they also say abuse of officials will result in sporting penalties rather than fines, to align with motorsport and other major global sports organizations. And at the bottom, racial and discriminatory comments will continue to be addressed firmly. I would really hope so. And then Mohammed Ben Salim, the FIA president, says, as a former rally driver, I know firsthand the range of emotions that are faced during competition. I've led extensive and collaborative review with contributions across the 7 FIA World Championships, FIA member clubs, and other motorsports organizations. The improvements the FIA has announced today that Apex B will ensure we continue to promote the best of sportsmanship in motorsport, while also giving stewards effective guidelines to act against individuals who may bring the sport into disrepute. I keep saying that the FIA will always be committed to ensuing motorsport is accessible for all our sporting family. And that's right there. It's from the FIA's official press release on that. And that's all the headlines I have for this week. And I'm going to turn it over to Matt for a couple of pickle winners.
You thought we'd forgotten. We got 55 minutes through the show before we had to bring up the FIA SCO. But it has happened for our weekly FIA segment.
Time 8 weeks.
We'll be back next week, folks. No pick a winner graphics to show you this week, but we have pick a winner races to choose from. And the WRC is back in action this weekend with Rally Portugal, which, reminder, starts tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern, first stage. So you need to get your pick in before that kicks off. Use the hashtag pick a winner across the Grid Network TV social media pages, or drop your comment in the box if you're watching this video live or on a slight delay. As long as you get it in before stage 1 kicks off tomorrow, then you will be eligible to score a point. Sebastian Ogier is back this weekend for Toyota, and he's looking for win number 7 in Portugal, and that's why he is my choice for the weekend. Kobe, who are you going with?
Last time I picked Sebastian Ogier, he did not win, but I feel really confident about his record here at Portugal, so I'm going to continue to ride with Ogier and think he gets it done this weekend.
Yeah, he was tremendous in this rally last year to take victory, so probably going to go with it again. Formula E is back after their Monaco trip a couple of weeks ago. They've flown halfway across the world to get to Japan to be back in Tokyo for the second year running. 2 races this year, of course, whereas it was only 1 last. Got to go with a guy that's either winning or being on the podium. I'm going with Oliver Rowland in Nissan's backyard to get the victory on Saturday. Of course, as I mentioned, 2 races for Formula E this weekend. Kobe, who are you going with?
I promise I'm not copying you, but I'm also going Oliver Rowland as well. That would be really cool for him to win, Nissan's home race, there in Tokyo, Japan. Would be really special if Nissan ended up winning one of the races, but would be even more special if they end up sweeping the weekend. Definitely a good time of year to be in Tokyo. Who you got, Josh?
All 3. Yeah, I'm staying with it, and I'm going with Ollie Rowland because he is the man on form this season. He's dominated the championship. He's the most consistent in whatever style of races we've got, and he loves a double header. So I'm going for him actually to do the double.
Big weekend of pick a winner as normal. Adam is going with Ogier and Oliver Rowland as well, so that's a clean sweep from all 4 of us. Let me just bring up my calendar quickly to tell you exactly what it is this weekend. 2 Tokyo races for Formula E, F1 at Imola, of course, this weekend, Portugal WRC, and the All-Star race for the Cup Series for NASCAR is pick a winner eligible as well. So get your picks in across the Grid Network social media or hashtag pick a winner. Before we get out of here for the evening, it's time for Hots and Knots. Hots?
C'est magnifique.
So I was going to say there can only be one.
Yeah, has to be. Has to be.
And as I watched it just before we went on the air, I'm fresh from watching this race. What a Grand Prix at Le Mans on Sunday for MotoGP. 100,000 people in. Babendon winning, waving the checker flag, the Michelin's home race. A Frenchman winning. Ducati were looking for 23 races in a row to break the record of Honda, and guess who won the race? It was a Honda. Pecco Bagnaia ends his race in the gravel track. Marc Marquez extends his championship lead. Couldn't have been better for him, but Zarco, just tremendous.
Everyone thought, it's going to be Fabio Quartararo's day. He's going to do it. Bad start. Dropped it at Recruitment. Yeah, and I just, the moment Zarco came across the line, me and Megan were watching the damage screen and going, is he on my tyres? Has he changed yet? Yes, he has. Does he have to change again? No, he doesn't. I got so confused about how the fact that we started on dries to wets to dries and then back to wets again. And then it was like, exactly who's where? And it was
who's where? Who's taking their penalty loops?
Yeah, I forgot that because then the new rule came in this weekend. And it's ironic that it gets done that after Marc Marquez ran off the grid and then everybody jumped in, if more than 10 riders come into the pit lane on the formation lap or before the 3-minute signal, it's a red flag procedure. That's what we had. And then they did it on the warm-up lap because we delayed the procedure by 15 minutes because it was too wet, then it was too dry. And then some started on dry, some started on wets, and then it rained again. So those on dries had to come back in for wet tyres. And it just got... But then they had to serve another double long lap penalty. So there was 4 loops going around and around. And then we were all trying to work out who had to do a loop and who didn't have to do a loop. And Zarco stuck to his strategy of, it's going to rain, I'll be on wet tyres. And whoosh, straight through. And he didn't just win because, he only won because everyone else there. He was 5 seconds ahead of Mark at the end of the mess around on lap 15. He increased that to 15 seconds. He won that race dominantly. And I was so happy for him. And he got a backflip. So that is the ultimate hot so far this season. 74 years. And finally another French winner.
A French winner of the French Grand Prix. Just awesome to have that many people in. I mean, they always pack that place out. And as you say, it looked like it was going to be Fabio. Had a good run at Jerez a couple of weeks ago. He was on the pole position. He started off well on Saturday, and then it kind of dribbled off. But for Zarco to come through and pull that kind of performance, just really, really cool. I'm not sure if I've got any others, to be honest.
No other hots. It's been a quiet weekend. Well, go with your knots then.
John's going with Ollie Rowland also, by the looks of things. So that's a complete sweep. Hot Zarco at Le Mans. That's it. That's the hot. Says Adam. Yeah, it was tremendous. I've got a couple of knots. Touring cars at Brands Hatch.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I don't like this new tyre rule.
Doesn't work, does it?
From the first race, then have to start on the hardest tyre available for race 2. It just ruins... Winning the first race ruins the rest of your day.
It's twice now that Jake Hill has just dropped back through the field for being punished for being on the podium. When he went past my commentary box, he was literally looking like he was on half throttle in race 2 at Donington Park because everyone else was going straight through. And then exactly the same thing happened race 2 at Brands, and immediately we thought, it's not an issue, it's these tyres. And it'll be locked out, it'll be adjusted. And I think the only way you can do it is just add ballast again. Simple as. So
maybe that's the way they'll end up going, is just go back to how it was, honestly.
What's he got?
It just seems like too much of a penalty. My other knot, I'm going to go on a slight rant here. Last weekend,
you're the one who wants to get out of here.
I know. I'm quick. It's a quick rant. Last weekend, a racing driver had a child. It was Max Verstappen.
Yes.
Well, he did, but Kelly did, and he was late to Miami, and so he does the Miami Grand Prix. He goes home. Then on Friday, he turns up at the Nürburgring, claiming to be someone else. Which is fair enough. That happens at the Nürburgring all the time, where people enter under a false name. And then according to one website, which obviously decided it wanted to say something and then was copied by the rest of the internet, he broke the lap record on a full tank in a Ferrari at the Nürburgring, when he did not break the lap record at the Nürburgring at all. And all of the pro Verstappen websites, social media pages, etc. went, yeah, he broke that. Wow, let's post this. He didn't break the lap record.
He's far from it.
I checked. There was no official timing perhaps released from the Friday running, but he was on pace, but he did not break the lap record. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry to go with that one. But he might win at the weekend.
He probably will do. And all I'm going to say to that is Jackie Stewart, you never drove a lap more at the North Slider than he needed to. That's it. And he got to do 14 laps to actually qualify.
If and when, and it's not going to happen to me again because I've had 2, you have children, you spend 2 weeks at home looking after them. He was away, he came back for a couple of days, and then he disappeared off to the Nürburgring. And next weekend he's at Imola.
And
Come on, man.
I was literally reading a message earlier on from the press release saying that he's been at the factory in the week, all the time, making sure that the car is up to speed as possible. Factory's in Milton Keynes. Has he actually gone home to see his new daughter?
He must have flown straight to Heathrow or Gatwick and stayed in MK for the week before going to Germany on the way back.
It's a very dysfunctional, but it works, I suppose, family life for him.
Seems to.
Congratulations to Alexander Rossi and his partner as well for having a baby, and to Alex Jakes and his wife who had a baby as well. That was announced today. Yes, they both kept it as the best secret possible. But yeah, there's baby news for you as well. I think they're lining up a feature for Alex and Max on F1 TV over the weekend about it. So check out for that. Yeah, the new dads on the block or something or other. But yeah. Other than that, Piastri is obviously going to win this weekend, trying to do 4 in a row. I'm very excited about this weekend. Denver says, what's hot coming through?
Jerry Whitehead is rumoured to get a possible couple of NASCAR signings to Chase Elliott and Brad Keselowski for Adelaide.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's also rumblings again about the NASCAR season will be finished before Adelaide. Supercars in November. Can they have a Ford wildcard and a Chevrolet wildcard in the BP Adelaide Grand Final? It's not the Adelaide 500 anymore. At the end of the season, the Larson thing won't go away either. So I don't think Chase Elliott would go, to be honest, but we'll see.
Game, set, match. No, it's gonna be fun though. Right, we are done. We are out of here. An hour in. That was quite good for us actually to get that down to what we have. Right, set yourself in because I'm going to run through the outro. Taking a look at our upcoming schedule, stay tuned at the end of the week for more Indy 500 practice coverage on Thursday with me and Kobe, and I'll be going solo for Fast Friday. Sunday afternoon, Grid Live wrap-up. That's going to be at 90 minutes after the Formula One's Emilia Romagna Grand Prix, and later in the day on Sunday, Grid Live pre-race previewing the NASCAR Cup Series race, the All-Star, of course, at North Wilkesboro. Monday, Grid Encore is at 7 p.m. Eastern, recapping the truck race and the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, Arca East at Flat Rock, plus F2 and F3 from Imola, as well as whatever happens in IndyCar that day with a Monday session as well. Please do continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for helping us reach 1,600 subscribers. We're now inching closer to our next milestone of 2,000 subscribers. You can hit the bell icon to get notifications so you'll always know when we go on the air. And you can follow all of our social media platforms and visit gridnetworktv.com. You can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. You can join Colin, Mark, Michelle, Robin, David, and Matthew who invest each month in the Grid Network. And we encourage you to join these fine folks, help us keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can afford to send our team to the track more often and continue growing our media outlet. The link to all of this is in the video description below. And if you want to make a one-time donation, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, and invest as much as you want. And consider buying a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee, and they will thank you on the air. I feel like an American having to read out all the terms and conditions at the end of the adverts. So, for Kobe Lambeth and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index, I'm Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.